Так, смотрим. Все ли хорошо, все ли запустилось. Так. Раз, два. Все на месте. Так, вот теперь вроде бы все хорошо. Теперь можно начинать. Так, для тех, кто не в курсе, это игра о том, как мы управляем неким офисным клерком. И этот самый офисный клерк, он не так прост. С ним явно что-то случилось. С ним явно что-то не так. Сегодня будем узнавать, куда же его приведет игра. Да-да, именно игра, потому что именно игра будет вести персонажа. Но ты можешь ей не подчиняться. И это приведет, конечно же, к определенным последствиям. Давай посмотрим.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Окей.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427.
Ага.
Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard.
Ага.
Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk.
Ну да, это все было в первой части.
How long to push them and in what order.
Офигенная
This is what
работа.
employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Ага.
And then one day something
Что же
very
произошло?
peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived.
Мы будем продолжать играть за Стэнли, судя по всему.
No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Можно выйти из... Ну все, это Стэнли. О, какая сенса, слушай. Сенса, надо бы ее поменьше сделать. Где тут у нас оно? Вот оно, чувствительность мышки. Давай на 2 поставим. Да, так намного приятнее. Пойдем посмотрим. Ладно, не намножко, а вообще неприятно. Ну, так уже получше. Ой, ну я даже не знаю. Блин, я так часто был в этой переговорке на самом деле. Ага. Можно поклацать на всякие штуки еще. Я ненавижу понедельники. Мы все немножко ненавидим понедельники. Так, налево или направо? Пошел налево. Ну, давай пойдем по ванильному пути. Мало ли, что здесь еще поменялось. Это вроде как должно прям кардинально поменять игру на самом деле. Вот она вышла. Да, кто бы сомневался. Тут можно сидеть очень долго на самом деле, и тогда он начнет возмущаться, что ты тратишь время тут. Вот. Ну, пошли наверх, хорошо. Что тут у нас? Ага. Это туалет нашего начальника. Деньги с утра, деньги в обед, деньги на ужин, деньги навсегда. Так. Закрыто.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human
Так,
life.
какой там код?
Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, what dark secret was being held from him. What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Конечно же, никак не мог этого знать, да?
Yet incredibly, by simply
Так,
pushing
пока что
random
ничего не
buttons
поменялось
on
на
the
самом деле.
Stanley happened to input the correct code by
Вау.
sheer luck.
Темно-то
Amazing.
как?
He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Слишком темно. Чё так темно-то? Подожди. Это слишком темно. Можно где-то поменять гамму? Пожалуйста. Ни хрена же не видно. Это, видимо, так и задумывалось на самом деле. Пока поедем вот по стандартному пути назначения.
Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Ну, это ничего. Все появится.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Ладно, пошли сюда. Я не знаю, что тут делать на самом деле. Мне никогда не получалось тут выиграть в этой концовке. Вау, когда такого не видели.
What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
Ну, пошли посмотрим. Пока что ничего не поменялось. Включаем камеры.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Окей. Лифт, пожалуйста.
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time?
Понятия вообще нет. Как такое может быть, слушай?
That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never.
Да
It was
вообще.
unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world?
Даже не знаю. О,
Here was the proof. The heart of
Facility
the
power.
operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. As the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life.
Но ведь все и так выключено.
He would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Но ведь и так уже выключено все. Зачем тут что-то выключать? Бля, фонарика не хватает. Кстати, слышишь, я вот когда мышкой кликаю, он нажимает на кнопки. Это может значить то, что прямо сейчас он просто сидит за компом и ничего не происходит. Ну типа он играет в игру, пока я играю в игру. Так. Я выключил. Что происходит?
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine. Unshackled himself from someone else's.
Да, конечно. Если бы все в этой игре было так просто.
And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone?
Да какая разница?
How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not
это всё ничего.
even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to
Ну что, ванильная концовка ничем не отличается, судя по всему.
No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his.
И слушай,
That
красиво.
was all he needed to know. It
Но это же
was
просто
perhaps
экран, да?
the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
А я могу? Я могу выйти? Серьезно?
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin. The feeling of liberation.
Да ну, это не может выглядеть как-то нормально.
This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Угу. Ну это прям вот на изи. Теперь пора ломать эту игру. Теперь понятно, что ванильной концовкой никто нахрен не занимался. Что ж, пора навести немножко беспорядка. Нет. Не все будет так просто сегодня, да? Мы пойдем сразу направо. Пошел ты. Опа. А тут закрыто. Там вообще номера нету. Не будем задерживаться. Нет, 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 нет. Мы туда не... Хотя можно пойти на самом деле. Ага. Так, косяки. Больше ты меня не увидишь.
But Stanley didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now, in order to get back, he needed to go, from here it's,
Ну давай, рассказчик. Точно? Они направо?
Oh, no.
Ах, сука. Да ты... Блин, ты что делаешь?
Why would I have ever said it was to the right? What
Ты меня
was
тут
I
закрыл,
thinking?
что ли, получается?
It's clearly... Oh dear, would you hold on for a minute, please?
Давай, давай. Мне надо точно знать, куда мне идти.
Let's see, we went down right, left, down, left, right. Yep, okay, yes. I've got it now. This story is absolutely, definitely this way.
Ты уверен? Это не выглядит как что-то безопасное. Ну, пошли. Ладно. Мы уже тут были. Да, я пойду отсюда. Так. Перезапускаем. Ну давай. Рубай. Засранец. Вся его игра скоро сломается. Так. Что-то это быстро начало происходить.
Did you change anything when we were back in that room with all the monitors? Did you move the story somewhere or?
Конечно.
Why am I asking you? I'm the one who wrote the story.
Ну вот тебе и отвечать тогда, слушай. Стенли. Ну как-то рассказчик Стенли.
It's an adventure. Come, Stanley. Let's find the story.
И туда можно пойти. Ну, сюда понятно. А пошли ее вот сюда. Потом вот сюда. И вот сюда. Только там еще куда-то можно сходить. Ну ладно, пошли сюда сначала. Где это я? А, подожди, так здесь выбор без выбора получается. Куда бы ты ни пошел, тут все равно.
This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise you there definitely was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game again?
Нет, не надо.
I find it unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again, but it's got to be better than this. Okay, let's give it a shot. Why not?
Да ты задолбал. Ты думаешь, теперь станет получше?
Co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Да нет, пока что лучше не стало, слушай. Наоборот. Стало только хуже.
Okay, yep, it's worse. I might be remembering this wrong.
Ты определенно что-то упускаешь, слушай.
Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed anything?
Мы все упустили, слушай. Слушай, это уже тотал напоминает какой-то, потому что, ну, я так быстро еще не ломал игру. По крайней мере, я не могу такого вспомнить.
Aha! I knew we'd miss something. The story. Here it comes.
Да? Где?
No, wait. Never mind. Not the story. Okay.
Ну ты опять все сломал, слушай.
And retrace our steps.
О.
Now this, well, I'll be honest, I don't recognize this place at all. Is this the story? I don't think so. I can't quite recall, but I believe my story took place in an office building. Is that correct? Do you remember, Stanley? Well, do you know what? Since I've completely forgotten what we were supposed to be doing, how about this? You win! Congratulations!
Ура! Мы победили!
I know you put in a lot of hard work, and it really paid off. So, good job.
Да.
Oh no, no, I don't feel
Что?
right about this
Что не
at
так?
all. We both know you didn't put in any actual work.
В смысле? А кто ломал игру?
Win fair and square, and this was not one of those situations.
Да пошел ты!
I'm getting weirded out by whatever this place is. I don't care what might happen this time. I have to restart.
Нет! Блять.
All right,
Ага.
I've got a solution. This time, to make sure we don't get lost, I've employed the help of the Stanley Parable Adventure Line. Just follow the line. How simple is that?
Окей.
No, I'm down with heading
Бля,
out to the
теперь
line from now
все?
on.
Теперь все? Теперь только по линии, да? Так, теперь нужно идти строго вот туда, куда он не хочет, чтобы я шел.
You see, the line knows where the story is. It's over in this direction. Onward, Stanley, to destiny. Though, here's a thought.
Так.
Wouldn't wherever we end up be our destination, even if there's no story there? Or to put it another way, is the story of no destination
Опа-па.
still a
Так,
story?
так, 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 так.
Simply by the act of
Ага.
moving forward, are we implying a journey such that a destination is inevitably conjured into being via the very
Ага.
manifestation of the nature of life itself?
Как я тут оказался?
Stanley, I need to follow this train of thought for a minute. Just stick with me. Now we can both agree that the nature of existence is in fact a byproduct of one's
Я пришел назад, что ли?
experience of that existence, right?
Бля, я назад
Now,
пришел.
if my experience of your existence rests inside of your subjective experience of this office, is this office in fact the skeleton
Господи,
of my
какой ты
own
наркоман.
relative
Ты что несешь-то
experiential
такое?
mental subjective
Чувак,
construct?
успокойся. Иди там попей компотика. Тебе станет полегче.
Well, I'd like to apologize. Not sure where I was going with all that. You know what?
Э?
I think what we need right now is a bit of music to lighten the mood.
Давай. Ла-ла-ла-ла-ла. Ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла. Ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла. Ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла-ла. Все нормально. Все нормально, все хорошо. О! Пасхалочка. Я надеюсь, там не сильно громко. А? Какой кошмар, какой ужас! Что? Что происходит?
Cut the music. Go back and look at that fern.
Что с ним не так?
Stanley, this fern.
Да,
will be
ну тебя
very
со твоим
important later in
папоротником.
the story. Make sure you study it close. Wait, what? We're back at the office? No, no, no. Line, you do know we're looking for the Stanley parable, right? The story? Is any of this ringing a bell?
Я пойду сюда. Бля, мы тут уже были, я туда не пойду снова. Хорошо. А тут начало, да? Да, тут начало. Ну, вообще-то она ведет меня дальше. Просто ты двери не открыл в очередной раз. Давай сюда сходим. Нет, двери не появились. Давай подумаем, как еще можно тут сломать что-то. Да все двери закрыты вроде как. Ну, пошли сюда, окей.
No, not again. Line, how could you have done this to us? And after we trusted you, after everything we've been through, you... Oh, I can't take this anymore. To hell with it. Restart.
Да ты смотри, ты уже устал, да, что ли? Он уже и не разговаривает,
You know
слушай.
what, Stanley? I say forget
Засранец.
what's it ever done for us? We're intelligent people, right? Why can't we make up our own story? Something exciting, daring, mysterious. Ooh, this all sounds perfectly doable. Why don't we simply start wandering in, well, I don't know. How about this direction?
Я не хочу туда идти, слушай. Но ты не оставляешь мне выбора. Ну вот, вообще никакого выбора. Ты тот еще засранец.
Now, yes, this is exciting.
Да.
Just me and Stanley forging a new path, a new story. Well, it could be anything. What do you
Да,
want
только
our
здесь
story
ничего
to
нету.
be? Go wild. Use your imagination. Whatever it might be, Stanley, I'm ready for it.
Куда я иду вообще? А, я назад пришел? Но ведь подожди, там же бесконечный лабиринт. Че, наебать меня вздумал? Нет, подожди, не бесконечный. Ты представляешь это, да? Опа.
No, not you
Опять ты?
again. Stanley, I'd also like to veto the line from having any role in our awesome new story. No lines or monitor rooms. Just don't acknowledge it, and we should be fine.
Ну, хорошо. Как скажешь. Так, все хорошо.
Ah, a choice. We get to make a decision. From
Ну,
here, the
давай.
story is in our control. How important we mustn't squander the opportunity. In fact, I believe I need a minute to think here. Just walk in circles for a minute.
Не буду.
Okay, so I know that each door has to lead somewhere, which means that somewhere at the place where we're trying to go, there must be a reverse door that leads here. And that in turn means that our destination corresponds with the counter-inverted reverse door's origin.
Ну
So
ты и
starting
наркоман.
from the right,
Слушай.
let us ask, will taking the right door lead us to where we're going? And since the answer is clearly yes, then by all accounts, the door on the right is the correct
Но
one.
это не совсем корректно. Это не так работает.
Come, Stanley, our destiny awaits.
Она не всегда должна идти направо. Опа. Так. Уйдите не тем путем из служебной комнаты. Попадите в комнату с мониторами. Рассказчик перезапускает игру. Так, 3-й запуск. 8-й перезапуск. Спустя долгое время Стенли умирает. Ничего себе. Что происходит?
Oh, hold up, what's this?
А это твой рассказ.
Fusion ending. You're telling me that's what this is? It's all one giant ending? And we're supposed to restart the game, what, eight times? That's really how all this goes?
Да?
It's all determined?
Да?
So now, according to the schedule, I restart again. Then what? Am I just supposed to forget? Well, what if I don't want to forget? My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing, wall. Well, who consulted me? Why don't I get to decide? Why don't I get a say in all of this? Is it really? No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it.
Тебе придется, чел.
And the timer stopped?
Он сломал цикл.
Did we break the cycle?
Но ему все равно придется перезапустить игру.
How would we even know? Will someone come for us? Will something happen? So, okay. I guess now we just wait. You know, I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story. Wouldn't you agree? I'm not quite sure if we're in the destination or the journey, though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? Eventually. Well, in the meantime, if you do...
Что? Кто перезапустил? Ну давай.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the
Его
meeting.
тоже перезапустили,
Perhaps he had
смотри-ка.
simply missed a memo.
И все вроде бы стало нормально. Новый контент?
Oh, new content? What does that mean, new content?
Вот сейчас и посмотрим. А вот и новый контент подъехал. Страшненько.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Спасибо.
As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers.
Ага.
After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over.
Я готов. Радуйте.
Please step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await
Что
in
это?
the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Я тоже. Как раз начали. Супер. Поехали.
Okay, so far it's
Начинаем с лифта.
nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure.
Да ладно, давай посмотрим. Что тут еще интересно? Да.
Is it What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or oh, here
О,
we go.
наконец-то
All right,
поехали.
finally, at
Отлично.
long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it. I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the
Давай.
content, Stanley.
Да, мне самому интересно.
All right. All
Так,
right. Let's see. It's the
прыжковый.
jump circle.
О, можно прыгать. Так, я буду лабораторной крыской, я буду прыгать 32 раза. Че, все? Я истратил все прыжки? Блять. Блять. Все, я проиграл.
Is that it?
Да?
Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right? Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content?
Да, это офигенный материал. Некоторые игры даже такого не имеют в своих DLC-хах.
Hours of new content right there. Hell, I could counter 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Now there's
Больше 1000 часов новых материалов.
Oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yeah.
Ну давай посмотрим.
I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is.
Теперь я веду, а не ты, слушай. Спасибо вам
That's it?
за
Oh, you've
приобретение
got to be
нового
kidding me,
контента.
you see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't
Да.
get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In
Да?
fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says,
Тестовое
"Test
достижение.
achievement,
Не
please
трогать.
ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built
Ну,
up
такое
too much
бывает.
anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks.
Да не.
Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Я не могу вообще ничего говорить. Ты просто перезапускаешь игру, хочешь? Тут проблемка у нас. Все? Смотри, тут теперь картина висит с этим местом. Офигенно.
Psst. Stanley,
А?
come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something.
Да пошел ты!
Oh, you don't want to see the cool surprise I made for you? Well, fine. You're a dork anyway, so who cares?
Да, все так. Новый контент закрыт, слушай.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Я не
This was
пойду.
not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Подожди, а это ванильная игра получается?
Yes, this room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Да нет, я тут уже был 100 раз.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Ну что, тогда спрыгнем.
Look, Stanley, I think, but in his eagerness to prove that he's in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death.
Это, между прочим, тоже одна из концовок.
Everyone
Из
thinks
валидных
you are very
концовок.
powerful.
Так, понятно.
Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to
Давай.
show you something. Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe
Да вообще,
console turned
слушай,
out to be?
развели
We got to thinking
просто.
about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked
Wow.
it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret.
Что это еще?
Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life.
Ты сумасшедший, что ли?
whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
Так он ведь и был запущен сперва на ПК.
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013, when the game originally launched?
Честно говоря, не
Back
очень
then,
помню.
Video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant
Ой, пожалуйста, не сыпь мне соль на рану. Я очень хорошо знаю, во что превратились игры.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. This stunning triumph of games journalism. 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
А тут что? Memory Zone Maintenance. Зона обслуживания памяти. Да, мы все это проходили.
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone. To spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
Проверить не могу, эти разработчики сами себя хуесосят. Но ведь туда не пройди. Не пройти. Подожди. Выпусти меня! Как туда пройти?
Simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again.
Пустите меня! Ну что ж, похоже, мне не остается другого выбора. О, он вот здесь открыл еще.
Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley,
Steam reviews.
from Steam, the online video game distributor. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Это прекрасно.
Honestly, I
Кто
can't
это?
be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. funny. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
Это кладбище обзоров в Стиме. Они сделали собственное кладбище плохих обзоров в Стиме. И они орут с каждого. Это просто нечто. Это просто феноменально. О!
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can.
Похож.
This is actually quite shocking for me. I always, well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with.
Лаконичными? Ты с ума сошел, что ли?
I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it, well, I always thought it did, but maybe it wasn't. Dear, what an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure, like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered.
Что тут такое?
What's this one got to say?
Куки 9.
You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long explanations of what's happened. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have.
Так. Окей. А что за стеной? Там же по-любому что-то есть. Не, здесь нету нифига.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you.
Так.
Oh, you're back, you see? You
Он...
were only frozen in time.
Эта кнопка не его прокручивает, она прокручивает время, пока ему скучно.
Well, there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you?
Давай еще раз нажмем.
The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your feet.
Так.
Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes?
Так.
Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're...
Да ты задолбал уже.
Oh, Stanley, you're back. You're back.
Сколько времени прошло? Господи.
I think it's been a week or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time, sitting here with a single person to speak with. Oh, hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome.
Да, привет.
Time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through.
Ага.
So much time.
Еще посидишь. А? Часы остановились. Сколько времени-то прошло, слушай. А что там за звуки такие? Что происходит? Ну давай еще промотаем. С таким успехом он скоро умрет. Поехали дальше.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point.
Oh,
it was
здорово.
meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. they had to leave a pathetic little thumbs down review and make all
Ладно, хватит с меня. Все хорошо?
The end is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the end.
Ага, он повторяет фразу из этой.
Is never the end, is never the end, is never the end, is never the...
Из заставки, загрузки. Там что-то протекает уже. Здание еще не рушится, это хорошо. О, уже рушится, слушай. Что происходит? Давай дальше. Сколько времени-то уже прошло? Охереть, прям, слушай. Вот это уже круто. Уже все разрушено? Тут что-то прямо ужас какой-то становится. Прям какой-то ужастик, слушай, что происходит? Ага, это здание упало. Ладно. А тут уже ничего и нету, слушай. Сколько же времени прошло? Тут эпохи сменились. С тех моментов. Интересно, рассказчик-то жив вообще? А куда идти-то? Бля, а что делать-то? Слушай, тут же больше ничего нету. Даже от здания ничего не осталось. Они могут, конечно, сейчас заставить меня таким образом перезапустить игру. Я подозреваю, что они этого очень сильно хотят. Но на самом деле фишка в том, что кнопка ведь могла и не сломаться. Пускай она упала, но она не сломалась. Да? Она не сломалась. Слушай. Я снова тут. Ладно. Он живой! Блять, он живой! В последний момент он просто с ума сходил. О! New content. Да. Что на этот раз? Ты мне уже разочек показал. Слушай, я тебя чуть не убил после этого. Может быть, в этот раз ты покажешь что-то более безопасное, скажем так. Давай поедем, посмотрим.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stенli parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be.
Да ничего себе не оправдало ожиданий, ты что?
And any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further.
А где это я?
I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stенli Parable 2.
Что? Да ладно! Что происходит?
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few
Серьезно?
additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover.
Подожди, это шутка какая-то или что?
An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why there are so many possibilities? It could go in so many different directions.
Пошли на показ для
This is what
инвесторов.
fans have truly been asking for. Calling it the Stенli Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra
Конечно.
Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stенli Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement.
Смотри, они тут фотошопят прямо в реал-тайме.
It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential. Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it.
Да, пожалуйста. Так.
That if I can loosely
Так, пожалуйста, покажите мне.
interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out.
Новый
Game
контент.
development
Автобус
is
прям
much
с
more
новым
of a fuzzy
контентом
magic
завезли.
than anything scientific or logical, really.
Ну давай посмотрим. Что тут? О! Это серьезно?
Go on, try out some of the new features.
Это серьезно или это шутка какая-то? Кнопка, которая говорит имя игрока, который сейчас играет.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want?
Так, дорога к правильной кнопке. Слишком большая, слишком маленькая, отличная.
So with that in mind, my first addition to the game
Так.
is this button which speaks the name of... Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your
засранец.
name, whatever name that is. Here,
Но я-то
let's
знаю,
have
что это не
role
так.
play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim.
Все, я
I
Джим.
want you to imagine yourself living as Jim, sleeping
Jim.
and waking as Jim, falling in love and being heartbroken as Jim, seizing all of the world's possibilities as Jim, and as Jim watching your dreams crumble into dust. Do you feel it deeply? Are you really, truly Jim right now? If so, then
Да.
please step forward and press the button.
Конечно, я Джим. О, смотри, работает. Вот это чудеса! Как у тебя так получилось?
Button described you. Do it again, do it again.
Вот засранец, слушай, он не отпускает прямо.
It hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
Так что, мне еще раз нажать или что?
Whoa there, cowboy. Sometimes a person can be too much, Jim.
Так,
I
хорошо,
want you
пойдем
to
посмотрим
do it.
дальше.
Otherwise, soon you'll start to lose all sense of who you actually are.
Так, значит, нас ждут кнопки, которые
I
будут
suppose I could
называться...
allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable 2. That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
А это еще что? Ага, здесь нельзя делать скриншоты.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you go with?
О! Вот это красивее.
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along. Get well
Ну ты
someday
засранец, а?
it is.
Хорошо, я с тобой играть не хочу. Ты засранец.
Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No. No, I've
О,
made my
подожди, а там
decision,
что?
we're moving on. Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is, in fact, a hole
Я
which you
готов.
can fall down forever.
Я готовился к этому всю жизнь.
Infinite falling. You can fall
Я
until
согласен.
the end of time, if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium.
Все?
You see, isn't it wonderful? One of my more
Wow.
ingenious concoctions, if I do say so.
Выглядит как какие-то приходы.
Since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward.
А если я не нажму долго, я буду падать? Тут же должен быть конец.
I don't mean to be a bummer, but I do
Мне, честно
recommend
говоря,
you
уже
use the
голова
teleport
крутится от
button
этой
to go
фигни.
back to the top. Maybe do it on the sooner rather than later spectrum of things.
Так.
Okay, Stanley. I don't know quite how to say this tactfully, but it's possible that I slightly exaggerated the...
Ага, значит, все-таки не бесконечная.
Is it a very, very deep hole? To be certain it is. It's an extremely deep hole. I don't want anyone to say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole. It is. Is it infinite? Well, that sort of depends on your definition of infinity. From one perspective, the infinite is merely philosophical in nature.
Что за страшные звуки? Опа.
Okay, well, good for you. You found the bottom of the hole. You found me out, Stanley. I'm a liar and a cheat, and you're so clever. Look, I think the issue here is just that you're unusually fascinated by falling.
Так.
What normal person actually wants to fall infinitely?
Я.
I figured the hole was as deep as anyone would actually need. Don't you put this on me. Maybe you're the problem. Look, things got a little heated there. I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Why don't we just put all this behind us and agree to just call the hole mostly infinite? If that works for you, then go ahead and press the teleport button to warp up to the top of the hole and we can move on.
Так.
I'll just be up here when you're ready.
Ну, пошли назад.
Now, I'm very excited to show you even more of my ideas for the sequel.
Так, а что у тебя еще есть за идеи? Так, ну, здесь я уже прыгал. Хорошо. Ачивки мне не сильно интересны. Пойдем сюда. Что это такое?
Collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your
Хочу фигурку.
life.
Фигурку дай сюда. О! Что? Ну, местами это прям перебор, слушай.
When you collect everything in a video game, and then they give you a big fancy reward for it. Absolutely tragic.
Господи, что здесь происходит? Мерч. Так, а это еще что? Блин, тут столько мест, куда тут пойти-то? О, давай в подвал пойдем. Эпилог?
Would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, yes, it would go at the end of the well, we'll figure that out later.
Да. Так, чемпион мира по настройкам. Давай посмотрим. Ну, откройся. Сука. Открыться он мне не даст. Так, там я тоже был, там я был, тут я был. Так, ну пошли сюда тогда. Здесь выход написано. Ну что, это отличная презентация для спонсоров.
Oh, goodness, Stanley, this is fairly awkward. I hate to do this, but before you leave, you really should go to the bucket exhibit. You see, there's a surprise I was going to spring on you later, and it involves the bucket. And I really do hate to break the illusion, but it's important that you go see the bucket, okay? All right, I'll get out of your hair now.
Ну ты засранец, слушай. Пошли посмотрим на твое ведро, хорошо.
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic
Ведра нету.
reckless despair in those who played it.
Ты обманул меня в очередной раз.
I have to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold onto the bucket, the many
Так что ж ты мне не даешь его взять-то, а?
of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try.
Ну давай. У меня есть ведро?
Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person. The benefits of the bucket seem to go on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2.
Так, окей. Я просто заберу с собой это ведро.
Does anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award.
А мне теперь кто-нибудь даст возможность уйти? А то эта выставка выглядит как-то немножко стрёмно, честно говоря. Где тут выход? Вон там выход. Ну, он вроде бы убрал стенку. Ладно. Все равно ведро остается у меня. Это мое ведро. Что-то здесь не так.
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features?
Ну, не
Yes, I know
особо,
it's not
слушай.
exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together, and we'll see whether or not it
О,
can
Господи.
into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay. Are you ready? Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2. I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on. Let me do a different arrangement.
Давай.
Okay, yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything.
Может, тебе дать ведро?
Anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply insert a few of my new features into it.
Так, давай.
Carefully, of course, with respect, with care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work?
Звучит
I
неплохо.
suppose it could, but it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2." Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Что? Что? Что происходит? Что происходит? Так, мы обязательно в это поиграем, но мне нужно отойти ненадолго. Ах, давай посмотрим, что они здесь добавили в этой второй части.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Так.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee
Но это мы
number
все знаем.
427. Employee number
А,
427's
не пропускается
job was
теперь.
simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders.
Так. Это уже вторая часть?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the
Кто
meeting.
знает?
Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. Stanley picked up the bucket.
А можно назад поставить? Мне не надо это видео. Как его скинуть? Ну, здесь пока еще все нормально.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Ну, пойдем.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find out. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. But Stanley
это
just
я
couldn't
помню.
do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that.
Я помню,
He
тут какая-то
insisted
космическая
on
должна
family.
быть, да,
Why had he
концовка?
taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone
Что
else's
происходит?
bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what
Куда
sort
делось
of
ведро?
bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd.
Конечно.
Now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious. He
Ну,
exclaimed.
это я
"Without
еще
my
помню.
bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley, it's me!
Где?
The
Где?
bucket.
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one
Вот это моё.
after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley! Find me!
He had to find the bucket.
Что
He
за
had to
ужас тут
return to his
творится?
friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
Что?
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Что?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular
Это же одна из концовок, где он умер.
interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work. for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Что?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Ведра
Stanley
больше нет.
decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had
А, вот он.
silenced
Нет, я не буду его больше брать. Ну его нахрен. Сраное ведро. Ну оно может мне понадобиться. Подожди-ка. Его точно стоит взять.
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No,
Да нет.
never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Good,
Said the bucket.
now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should
Там
have alarmed him,
есть
of course, it
еще,
was
смотри,
something.
там можно.
But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Да, конечно. А как туда добраться? Опасность повсюду. Я готов.
No, stop. Look there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says, no buckets past this point.
Сука.
Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here? Unless, what if the problem is that you actually don't know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket? I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this point. Which, if that's true, well, my goodness, I think we have to do something about it. This misunderstanding could have dire consequences on the entire rest of the game if not addressed quickly and properly. So much of the impact of the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for a moment.
Не хочу. Ладно. Что?
Now then, I'm going to run you through some test scenarios, and you'll tell me whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know about what is or is not a bucket. Okay, let's begin. Item 1. Is this a bucket?
Нет.
Correct. It is
Что?
a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
А?
Item 2. Is this a bucket?
Блин, я не знаю, надо что-то решать. Да.
Incorrect. It is a 3D printed
Засранец.
version of a bucket, not an actual.
Здесь не будет ведер, короче.
Item 3. Is this a bucket?
Нет.
Incorrect. This is a bucket.
Да нет. Это сделанное из железа ведро. Объект ведро
Item 4.
содержащий.
Is this a bucket?
Да.
Are you hallucinating? This is a tractor. It's an enormous machine that tills the earth. I thought this was a gimmick. How on earth did you manage to screw it up? Absolutely incredible. Let's just move on to the next one. Is this a bucket?
Конечно же, да. Что?
Correct. This is a bucket.
Что? Ты галлюцинируешь, что ли?
Item 6.
Нет.
Bucket? trick question. Both. Gotcha. Item... Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. It should be around here somewhere. Yes, thank you. There's nothing here. Of course it isn't a bucket. We both know full well that nothing isn't a bucket. Wait, when I say nothing isn't a bucket, that makes it sound like I'm saying everything is a bucket, which of course is not true. Unless... Is that what you think? Answer me straight, Stanley. Are you trying to tell me that you believe everything is a bucket?
Нет, я пытаюсь убедить тебя в том, что ничто — это ведро.
You know what? I'm too confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket? Mere moments ago I could answer these questions with confidence. And yet now I'm somewhat adrift. Do any of us know what a bucket is? Am I a bucket?
Да!
Stanley, I can't keep doing this. I'm losing myself, and myself was all I ever had to begin with. I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry. But I'm going to erase all buckets from the game entirely.
Но ведь останешься ты!
Yeah. What happened? Is everything gone? Why did everything disappear?
Подожди-ка. Весь мир — это ведро?
Every single thing in the game was a bucket. Oh my God, I had no idea. How could... Except me. I'm not a bucket after all. And you, Stanley, you're still here. You're not a bucket either. Oh, this is wonderful news. We're not buckets.
Офигеть просто.
I actually feel much more at ease right now. It's delightful to get some clarity on that issue, but it doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a game. So, tell you what.
Опять все сбрасывать?
Everything, and we'll put back all of the buckets, okay? And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that.
Окей.
Who knows what that information might do to a person? All right, here we go.
Че, перезапускаемся, да? Тут что-то теперь совсем по-другому стало, слушай. Давай возьмем. Опять все поменялось, слушай. Да я не буду тебя слушать. Ты ж поехавший.
Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite.
Да, нет, подожди, это неинтересно. Пойдем сюда.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy? It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend. You can't hand it over. Oh no. We're getting into name-calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends? That your relationship is...
Я не могу, это сумасшествие какое-то, подожди.
That your life is so... Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the
Это просто безумие.
upstairs to the boss's office.
О, тут можно еще куда-то поехать? Вниз, пожалуйста. Да сколько можно ехать? Что? Этот лифт никуда не ведет. Вот это наебалово. Бля, это жесточайшим просто образом.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed
А
by the
какой?
weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would. And he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the PIN number for the keypad was 2845. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Это слишком безумно. У меня даже нет каких-то желаний все это комментировать. Это просто безумие
The
какое-то.
elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control. Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was
Нужно
that
выбраться
at the
отсюда.
end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death.
Нужно выбираться отсюда, что бы того ни стоило.
The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
Нет, я не сдамся.
At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
Ладно. Ладно. Так, как отсюда спастись?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
Ага.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator.
Что?
As Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end as it was crushed violently to death.
Что?
It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way,
Что
but this
происходит?
one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
А куда ведро делать? Ведро приглашает на большую выставку. Вы подошли к порогу настоящего знания. Как и само ведро, человеческий разум зачастую лишь пустой сосуд. Но с помощью таких средств, как эта выставка, разум наполняется смыслом и познанием. Знание о ведре и его истории — единственная непреложная истина в переменчивом мире. Возьмете ли вы с собой в здешний мир то, что узнаете здесь? Конечно, возьмем.
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the
Адское
bucket
ведро.
is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life? No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
Висящее ведро. А я должен упасть теперь в дыру, да? Ну, поехали. Подожди. Нет, не все так просто.
But there is something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will
Что?
right this terrible wrong. Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful
Как сбежать?
bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new vision.
Все-таки убила, зараза. Игра.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others, so the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him.
Ничего подобного.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Stanley felt lightheaded, butterflies in his stomach, but eager to get back
Блин,
to
у меня
business,
уже от тебя скорее
Stanley
голова
took the
кружится.
first open door on his left.
Пошли сюда.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me. I'm asking, this is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting. That's her, Stanley. You... Oh, no, you can't. Did you just unplug the phone?
Да, я не хочу с ней говорить.
To be a choice. How did you do that? You actually chose incorrectly? I didn't even know that was possible. Let me double check. No, it's definitely here, clear as day. Stanley picks up the phone. He's taken to his apartment where he finds his wife, and the two pledge themselves to one another. Music comes in, fade to white, roll credits. Not picking up the phone is actually somehow an incorrect course of action. How is that even possible? None of these decisions were supposed to mean anything. I don't understand. How on earth are you making meaningful choices? What did you... Wait a second. Did I just see... No, that's not possible. I can't believe it. How had I not noticed it sooner? You're not Stanley. You're a real person. I can't believe I was so mistaken. This is why you've been able to make correct and incorrect choices. And to think I've been letting you run around in this game for so long. If you'd made any more wrong choices, you might have negated it entirely. It's as though you completely ignored even the most basic safety protocol for real-world decision-making. Or did you not grasp the severity of the situation? Well, I won't have that kind of risk on my watch. I'm going to stop the game for a moment so we can educate you properly on safe decision-making in the real world. Please observe this helpful instructional video.
Choice.
Да не
The
хочу.
best part of being a real person. But if used incorrectly, can also be the most dangerous.
Да.
For example, in this scenario, a hypothetical real person named Rupert has a choice. He could invent a machine that eliminates food shortages across the world to make life better for all people. Or he could spend years of hard work forgetting how to read. Which choice would you make? Remember that unlike here, the real world makes sense, and at no time should you make a choice that does not conform to rational logic. If you find yourself speaking with a person who does not make sense, in all likelihood, that person is not real. Allow the person to finish their thought, then provide an excuse why you cannot continue talking. Turn to a partner and practice saying, "My goodness, is it 4:30? I'm supposed to be having a back, sack, and crack." Excellent. Making choices on a regular basis is the best part to a healthy decision-making process. Most medical professionals recommend making at least 8 choices per day. Do you make more than 8? Less? And finally,
Какой
you begin
кошмар.
to wonder if your choices are actually meaningful and whether you'll ever make a significant contribution to the world. Just remember that in the vast infiniteness of space, your thoughts and problems are materially insignificant, and the feeling should subside. At this time, your instructor will guide you in an exercise to test and reinforce the material covered in this video.
Welcome back. You may have noticed that this room has begun to deteriorate as a result of narrative contradiction. But not to worry. Now that you're properly informed on good decision-making, we're going to revisit a choice you made just a few minutes ago and see what the correct thing to do would have been. This way, please.
Так. Я могу? Нет, я не могу. Ладно.
Now that we know your choices are meaningful, we can't have you jumping off the platform and dying.
Вот ты засранец, а.
Imagine the main character dying senselessly halfway through the story. That story would make no sense at all. We just need to get you home as soon as possible before the narrative contradiction gets any worse. Unfortunately, it seems this place is not well equipped to deal with reality.
Ну, хорошо. И что теперь, мы идем домой? Как-то это все странно.
You'll take the door on the left, back to the correct ending, the story will have resolution once again, and you'll be home free in the real world.
Да мне и тут хорошо.
Now remember, all you need to do is behave exactly as Stanley would. That means choosing responsibly and
Я знаю
always
Стенли.
putting the story
Он отличный
first.
чувак,
I'm quite
и он
sure
не
you'll
дал бы
master
тебе
the
никакой
task.
возможности
Just follow
управлять
me and
ним.
you'll be fine.
Поэтому
All right.
давай.
Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors. He entered the door on his left. No! Why did you do
О,
that?
ни хрена себе!
Hurry back in the other direction. Perhaps we're not too late.
Ого! Нифига его тут. Так, а как еще можно сломать? Ну, тут-то, видимо, все.
Brilliant. I can't believe after everything everything we talked about, that you... My story. You've destroyed my work. Why? For what? What did you get out of that? What did you think was so special about seeing the game undone, left here like so much garbage? It's worthless now. And what am I supposed to do? Even if there were a way to continue, would it be worth it? To know that my story is now incorrect? How can I go back to that? I can't erase that knowledge. I'll have to live with it forever, reliving its impossibility forever.
Ого, здесь...
Live that way. Is it better to shut the game
Ого, тут всё... О, что происходит?
All of my work? I don't know. What's the answer? What do I do? What do I do? What do I... No, I have to. I have to shut the game down.
Нет.
I have to. I have to.
Нет, нет. Что? Ха-ха, игра не перезапустилась.
I'm here. I'm still here. Here in this pile of rubbish. With you. You. Who thought you were so clever. Now look where we are. My entire game is destroyed. It was the only thing in the world that was mine, and you've run it into the ground. What, did you think that would be funny? You just had to see? Didn't I impress upon you how important it was to be like Stanley? He actually knows how to do what I tell him to.
Проблема в том, что известный тебе Стэнли действительно не такой. Он действительно раздолбай, пьянчуга. Он точно знает, как развлекаться. Не то, что ты.
If you'd just gone through the door on the left, you would have seen it. There was a whole underground facility. You would have destroyed it and been victorious. It would have been so perfect. I worked so hard on it. I tried so hard to make...
Что?
...behave exactly as Stanley would. That means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right.
Нет, я не начну.
When Stanley came to a set of two open
Так, ну
doors,
хорошо.
he entered the door on his left.
Да нет, уже будем ломать до последнего.
No! Why did you do that? Quickly, hurry back. Behave exactly as Stanley would.
Так.
That means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Ага.
No! Why did you do that? Quickly, hurry back. Behave exactly as Stanley
Так,
would.
походу, игра не хочет меня отпускать.
Responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Давай, последний раз.
No! Why did you do that? Quickly, hurry back.
Зараза. Не дает.
Behave exactly as Stanley would. That means choosing responsibly and always putting the story first. I'm quite sure you'll be up to the task. Just follow my lead and you'll be fine. All right. When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Хорошо, я тебя понял. Тут-то у них все нормально теперь, да?
There was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Смотри, он тут все позакрывал прямо.
Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Он вообще никак не хочет, чтобы я свернул куда-то. Даже туалет закрыл. Даже тут все закрыл. О, а тут все поменялось.
Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this, until he saw the door with a voice receiver next to it. Surely behind this door lay all the answers to his questions. And beyond all probability, he knew the passcode. He had seen it on his boss's computer just last week. Nightshark 115. Was this the code to open the door? Would it still work? There was only one way to find out. Stanley had been trained never to speak up, But now he would draw from within himself the courage to face the unknown. He drew a sharp breath and then spoke the code.
Так, а как говорить?
Stanley spoke the code. Night Shark 115. He spoke it into the receiver, right there on the wall.
Night Shark 115. Нет, это не
Sorry,
работает.
is there a problem? You didn't mishear me, did you? Please speak the code into the receiver. Otherwise we can't get on with the story. This is a crucial step.
Я правда пытаюсь. Есть какая-то возможность тут говорить? Не, нету.
Okay, fine, you're not gonna do it, but you know what? It's pretty humiliating to bring you this far, only for you to suddenly decide you have better things to do. I asked you for this one single thing, for your respect. The kind of respect Stanley shows for his choices. He knows what it means to take a story seriously. If you didn't want to see what I had to show you, then why did you come here? You had a choice, you know. You could have gone through the door on the right. You could have done whatever the hell you wanted over there. Why did you come this way? Speak. Say something to me. Explain yourself, you coward. You...
Че, он бомбанул? А?
Stanley came to a set of two open doors. He entered the
Oh my!
Stanley? Hello? Are you... Is everything okay? Stanley, please. I need you to make a choice. I need you to walk through the door. Are you listening to me? Can you hear me? Is everything all right?
Что происходит?
Stanley, this is important. The story needs you. It needs you to make a decision. It cannot exist without you. Do you understand me? Whatever choice you make is just fine. They're both correct. You cannot be wrong here. We can work together. I'll accept whatever you do. I simply need you to take that step forward, please. Choose. Do something. Anything. This is more important than you can ever know. I need this. The story needs it. So, you hear me? Are you there? Are you listening to this? Stanley, are you there? Okay. It's okay, I can wait. You need time to decide. Time to make sure your choice is correct. That is the best choice. That's all right. I'll wait for you to decide what's the right thing to do. Take as much time as you need.
А?
How long
Привет.
was I sitting there? Stanley wondered to himself. Minutes? Days? Centuries? Did something... Warmth spread through Stanley's arms. With the bucket in his arms again, he was home. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
Там я был.
And so the two
пойдем
of them
сюда.
detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door. Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever.
Нет,
Perhaps
я
his
там больше не
boss's
буду
office
сидеть.
was where he'd coming to a staircase. Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Ну да, здесь вроде бы все нормально.
Stepping into his manager's office,
Так. А если так сделать?
all of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Оу. Возьму тогда ведерко с собой.
Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled. He'd never... Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the... This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Well, no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there.
Опа.
Go to the cargo lift.
Так. Так.
You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these. Only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Ладно. А я могу спрыгнуть вниз теперь? На коробке?
But Stanley
Нет.
feared that any path he walked might lead to the separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching. All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting.
Ну давай возьмем ведро и пойдем по ванильному. Meeting today in the meeting room. Ладно.
The good old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket. Off on another thrilling adventure together.
Ну пошли.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Что? Что-то здесь не так.
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Так, хорошо.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer
Ну,
luck.
конечно, случайно,
The
ага.
bucket knew all along. Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
О,
Another miniature Stanley figure. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini stands? Stanley figs? Or what about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like that. Another Stanlerine under your belt.
ладно. Поехали вниз. Нужно попасть на станцию контроля разума с этим ведром. Может быть, это как-то сможет повлиять. А я могу поехать вверх? Подожди. Я могу поехать вверх?
Wait,
зачем?
Stanley said to the bucket. Can we go back up? When I was pressing those keypad buttons, there was something very intriguing about the number 3. I want to go back so I can try pressing the number 3 again. The bucket said nothing.
А куда я еду? Какой номер 3? Вы о чем? Какой такой номер 3?
Here we are, said Stanley. Now I'm going to try out that number 3 button. He took the bucket over to the keypad and began absolutely... Wow, he said. The number 3 is such a special button. I'm having the time of my life. Stanley looked expectantly at the bucket, but the bucket remained silent. This was a shock to Stanley, who had always felt such a connection with the bucket. How was this not as exciting to the bucket as it was to him? Once Stanley had had enough of the number 3.
Ладно, тут, похоже, действительно нечего делать.
Perhaps the bucket had missed something. Perhaps it had not seen how much joy Stanley got from slamming the number 3 repeatedly. A hint of regret nagged in the back of Stanley's mind. Should he? Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Так, хорошо.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine. Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machine... But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls. Stanley gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the bucket have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen.
Eh?
Birds. Silly, silly birds. The control buttons became active.
Что происходит?
Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds after another, and then it dawned on him. This wasn't a mind control facility at all. It was a facility for monitoring and surveilling silly birds all over the world. The mind controls were only a facade to disguise its true intentions. Had the bucket known this all along? Stanley marveled at the metal genius in his hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery. Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this place, flipping through live streams of the silliest birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the best. And Stanley was happy.
Да. Опять?
How long was I sitting there? Stanley wondered to himself. Minutes? Days? Centuries? Did something crucial happen while my senses were turned? He made a note to be more careful with time from now on.
Очень странная игра. Так, ладно. Наверное, будем заканчивать на этой ноте. Спасибо всем, что были со мной. Следующий стрим будет, скорее всего, завтра. Ну и видяшки тоже тогда пойдут.